The Atlantic tropics are very active. Good Friday evening. I'm Mike Naso with this 11 p.m. Friday night update on the tropics. We have Hurricane Kirk, which had peaked as a strong Category 4 hurricane. It's been fluctuating a bit, moving safely out at sea right now. We have Leslie way down here in the central Atlantic, the eastern Atlantic even, and that is now a hurricane, a Category 1, even though it doesn't look that great. It's strengthened enough to become a hurricane. And then we have an area of disturbed weather here in the Gulf of Mexico that is now officially designated an invest area. So we'll have some computer model runs, and it is looking a little bit more troublesome potentially for areas of the Gulf Coast of western Florida in the next couple of days. We'll talk about all this as well as the aftermath still of Hurricane Helene. Here's the latest on Hurricane Kirk as of 11 p.m. Atlantic time, which is also Eastern time. It was at 25.0 north, 49.8 west. Winds were still 130 miles per hour. It's a Category 4 hurricane, and it's moving north-northwest at 13 miles per hour, almost due north pretty soon, and then it'll shift to the northeast. It looks like the Azores should be okay. However, come midweek, we could have whatever's left of it headed here towards areas of Europe. This is Spain, and this is France, and this is the UK. So again, you guys in Europe, keep an eye for impacts midweek from what's left of Kirk. One of the reasons we could have high swells along the U.S. East Coast, Bermuda, the Bahamas, and the Azores, any landmass around Kirk, is because of this wind field. This is a very large hurricane. Hurricane force winds extend out about 45 miles from the eye, and tropical storm winds 220 miles away. So this is a very large area of bad weather pushing through the Atlantic, and that means the swells are going to propagate definitely to the northern islands of the Caribbean here, but beyond that to Bermuda, the Bahamas, and the eastern seaboard of the U.S. Could be pretty rough surf. Then we go further out, and here's Leslie. Leslie became a hurricane tonight. It's at 10.4 north, 34.2 west, winds of 75 miles per hour. It's a Category 1 hurricane, and is moving west-northwest at 7. As Kirk pulls out, we'll see Leslie start to gain in some latitude quickly, and it should remain out over open waters, and it looks like the environment's going to become a little more unfavorable, so it's no longer forecast to become a major hurricane, but definitely a high-end Category 1, maybe a 2, not out of the question, but it is another hurricane, the 8th of this season, and this is definitely a backloaded hurricane season because we didn't have anything going on in August, and we had Hurricane Beryl in July that was such a monster, and we thought, oh, maybe this hurricane season's not going to do anything, but it came back with a vengeance in September. Once Leslie continues to the northwest, it probably is going to end up turning out like Kirk, but until we see it happen, we always got to keep an eye. Here's the infrared satellite. There's Kirk up here fluctuating. It's going through an eye wall replacement cycle where the inner eye dissipates and a new larger eye takes shape, and so it is weakening. It had been up at least 140, 145 miles an hour, down to 130, but it should remain a very powerful hurricane for the next 2 or 3 days. And the wind shear here from the outflow of Kirk had been impacting Leslie, but as Kirk moves away, Leslie was able to burst just enough over the center to become a hurricane. But if you look, Leslie's still flat on her western side, which is a sign that it is still struggling with wind shear. As Kirk moves out of the way, Leslie should fan out a little more, and that will allow it to strengthen just a little bit. But again, both Kirk and Leslie should remain out over open water. High swells are possible, though. There's another wave that should leave Africa behind Leslie. As the wave train continues in through early October, we will keep an eye on that. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has that a 30% chance for development as it leaves the west coast on Monday or Tuesday. However, over here, our disturbance in the western Gulf of Mexico is a 30% chance of development the next 48 hours. But through the next week, it is a high 70% chance. It's a broad area of low pressure producing disorganized shower and thunderstorms. Gradual development is expected, and a tropical or subtropical depression or storm is likely to form later this weekend or early next week while it moves eastward or northeastward across the Gulf. Interests in the Florida Peninsula and the Florida Keys should monitor the progress. Very heavy rain on the way. Now, when I look at the satellite there showing you, I don't see extreme organization, but there is definitely some low pressure down here and some heavy rainfall, and all of this mess is going to kind of cycle its way here towards the east or east-northeast. I'm hoping, if it has to go to Florida, that it's below that line because the Big Bend and areas further north into the Carolinas and Appalachia do not need any more rainfall. Please, they don't need any more rain. But remember, the west coast of Florida got hit with very damaging storm surge. It wasn't just areas inland with the inland flooding. So we don't need another strike anywhere, let alone on the west coast of Florida. But that appears to be where this system would head if it develops. Now, as far as intensification, the waters are very warm. Looks like wind shear right now is not too bad, and if it does move kind of in tandem with any troughiness to the north as that slides this direction, the storm slides that direction, that could actually hold its own or even intensify it, and that would be very bad news. This is the GFS model. This is as of 12Z on Friday. Note that it made it a very powerful hurricane and made landfall there along the west coast of Florida. See right there? Boom. And then the 18Z GFS, a little bit weaker and a little bit further south, but still an impact there along the western coastline of Florida. Sometime, what day is that? Let's look. That's when it's impacting on October 9th. That would be Wednesday of this upcoming week. So by midweek, we could have a landfall of a tropical system in Florida. The Canadian model, look at this, slams it into the Yucatan, then spits it back out, kind of looping around there. But that's a scary looking storm. Look at those little isobars together. That looks like a hurricane. And then, of course, we see our systems move out in the Atlantic and another one develop behind it. So we're going to watch this all very, very carefully. Here's the European ensembles. Now, this is as of 12Z up here, and this is not good. When you see red lines, what you basically have to look at in this map of lines, when you see gray, look at the color code here. Gray is a very weak 1,000 millibar tropical depression. Green, you're in a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm. Blue is a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane. When you get red, orange, pink, that's a stronger hurricane. There's some reds in here with the European. So that would be a potent hurricane landfall, and look at where they are. From the Big Bend of Florida all the way down to Marco Island. That's not good. Now that's the 12Z. Here's the 18Z, and again, showing a hurricane. Some of these European ensembles, and there goes Kirk and Leslie, and here comes another system. So we will watch this very carefully. We don't have anything there yet, but I would keep an eye. Andy Hazelton on X posted this. These are the tracks, historical tracks of storms, hurricane impacts in western Florida in the month of October. And obviously, when you hear in the media, oh, if this develops, oh, it's happening again, it's climate change, we must, burn witches at the stake, yada, yada, yada. Take a look at this. This is through, 150 years or so? That is a lot of strikes in western Florida and the Florida Peninsula in the month of October. 1872, 1879, 1947, 1941, 1950, 1873. It happens, okay? But we don't want it to happen because they've been hit pretty hard there. Here's the name list. Again, we've exhausted a lot of names recently, and obviously there'll probably never be another Hurricane Beryl after the devastation in the Caribbean in July, and I'm assuming there will never be another hurricane named Helene. It's one of the deadliest hurricanes in the last 50 years in America. We've gone through Joyce, Kirk, Leslie. The next name is Milton. And Milton is a brand new name because every 6 years the 6 lists are repeated. And this name list was last used in the year 2018. And Milton was Hurricane Michael, October 10th, 2018. It was one of only 4 Category 5 hurricanes to ever hit the United States, destroying Mexico Beach, Florida. They replaced the name Michael with Milton. So hopefully if that system in the Gulf becomes Milton, it won't be like Michael. And then after that we have Nadine. So our 2 systems in the Atlantic, the next 2 names are Milton and Nadine, and we'll keep an eye on that. The aftermath of Hurricane Helene continues. The news is not good. Death toll over 200. Still searching for loved ones. Power's still out. Just devastating stories there. And we really, really hope the best for those people and wish them all the good luck and prayers that they need. Still significant power outages here in areas ravaged by the storm. In Georgia, look at that line right there on the right side of where the hurricane went. High power outages, and then up into North Carolina, they're still dealing with it as well in western North Carolina and South Carolina, but it's getting better. We're getting there, but it still is a lot. So we're going to keep an eye on the tropics. If you are in Florida, the Gulf Coast, keep an eye on this system in the Gulf just in case it does something. We don't know yet, but it could. Kirk is headed out. Leslie's headed out. And we'll watch everything for you. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you next time.